Hello, BookTube. A while ago, Matthew at Mayberry Book Club looked at the books in his tiny house and wondered, has Steve read all of these? He was new to BookTube at the time. I didn't know him at all. And he made a video about it, wondering, because I am a prolific reader, and I have been for a long time. 1,000 books have come up on this channel, every type and description. So it naturally made him wonder, has he read everything that I have here? Is there anything that I can say, oh, you haven't read this? So he made a video along those lines, and it caught on as a little exercise in futility. It caught on, and a whole bunch of people started making videos, uh, asking, "Has Steve read it?" and going about the fringes of their personal library and picking books that maybe they've never heard me talk about, just wondering. And it was a lot of fun, and it ran its course. As fads do, and then went away. And then Daniel Guilty Feet revived it for season 2. Season 2 of Has Steve Read It? And just like season 1, it has taken off. That is fine by me. These are tons of fun. Not only am I seeing some of the books that in your collections that I wouldn't ordinarily have seen, but I'm also getting some great suggestions, some things that I didn't know about, and that's wonderful. That doesn't often happen, even on a bookish community like BookTube. And we've operated with some vague rules, some vague but fairly firm rules. 8 books, so not 3, not 16, not 20, not 30, but 8. 8 books would be one of the rules. Another rule would be, it should be something that you have, that you've either read or mean to read. It shouldn't just be you searching through Amazon or Goodreads to find the most obscure book that's ever been written. And that verges into, quasi rule number 3, which is that this is all done in fun. Your choices should not be made out of anger or condescension. They shouldn't be a-hole choices. The point isn't to stump me. That might seem like the joke, but the point is to have some fun here with, everybody else's bookshelves. And that's been easy to do. Those rules have largely been easy to do. They've largely been easy to follow. And so we have progressed through season 2. And of those 8 choices that you get, every book you pick that I haven't read is the score of 1 bean. One little schnauzer head on the screen. If I had technical ability, that's what you would see. Well, there's been a lot of fun, a lot of laughs and heartbreak and warm hugs all along the way and cocoa on the back porch, but nobody's done really well. Nobody's done really well. Just put it this, we're all friends here. We can put it in a nice, bald, no punches pulled way. No one has gotten 0 beans. No one has gone through all of their 8 books and had me rate every single one of them. That ignominy has not happened yet. A few people have gotten 1 bean out of 8. A few people have gotten 2, and we have a handful of people who have gotten 3. But no one is all the way at the end of either end of the spectrum. We don't have a winner, and we don't have a loser. There are multiple people on each one of those rungs. And 3 is as high as it's gone. Now, some of you might be thinking back to season 1 of Has Steve Read It, might remember a channel that was very new at the time, Hannah's Books. Of course, Hannah is now indispensable in our little corner of BookTube. But at the time, she was a brand new BookTuber with a white initiate headscarf. She had no great battle gear at all. And she decided to throw her hat in the ring for Has Steve Read It, and did really well, including one of her own books, a book that she helped co-write. And for a long time, she was the sovereign of the known universe as a result of that. And I had been wondering this whole time of season 2, how I would fare if veterans started re-entering the fray. Most of the people who are doing this didn't have BookTube channels when the first season ran, so needless to say, they're itching for the fight of jumping into the fray. But I've often wondered what would happen if some of the old hands jumped in. Matthew himself did at Mayberry Book Club, and today Hannah returns. Today Hannah's Books returns for season 2 of Has Steve Read It, and pulls one of the oldest tricks in the professional arena boxing racket in Chicago in the 1920s. She brings in a ringer. She brings in a ringer. Instead of putting forward 8 books herself, she brings in her brilliant son, Abe, who does his own book suggestions as sort of the next generation. And as a nod of the hat to the next generation, he busts out his inner Chris Thiele and does his own musical rendition of the theme to Star Trek The Next Generation. And it's quite enjoyable. He is bursting with talent. Although, I should point out, if he's watching, that his musical number, although incredibly talented, was a travesty. There's only one real Star Trek, and it's the original Star Trek. So, if you don't score 8 beans, if you don't ace this test that's coming up in front of you, Abe, then you owe me a video in which you adapt the original Alex Courage theme for the real original Star Trek on your stringed instrument. You don't get to 8 beans, you owe me. I had to suffer through The Next Generation, that theme song, every week in the most boring incarnation of Star Trek that ever was. Nevertheless, I was probably chosen for its title, and we have The Next Generation of Hannah's books putting forward these challenges. Now, who knows how Abe will do? Perhaps he will be so pummeled in the ensuing video that he doesn't have a single pinky to raise towards strumming his way through the Alex Courage theme. Let's find out. Let's find out how he does. His first book is America's Instrument, The Banjo and the 19th Century by Philip Gura and James Ballman. Can't help but wonder if Chris Thiele has read this thing. But for me, it is a yes. And despite its specialized nature, it is a yes. And it is a yes because of Chris Thiele and all of his various bandmates over the years. Chris Thiele is a fiddle player, a mandolin player, a banjo player. You name it, and he's a virtuoso on it. I've seen him in concert a few times, and it's an eerie thing. It's talent up and the atmosphere of eerie. And it was during one of my initial infatuations with Nickel Creek that I read this book. Otherwise, it would certainly have been a no. But unfortunately, it's a yes. So, a little bit of a stumble there for the boy genius. Let's see if he can recover. Number 2 is Music as a Social Life, The Politics of Participation by Tomas Torino. And Abe makes it sound fascinating, but it's a no. I have not read it. I think I probably would want to from his description, but it's a no. Number 3 is All Silver and No Brass, An Irish Christmas Mumming by Henry Glassy. And this seems even more fascinating to me, again, from Abe's description, but it's a no. These are specialty books in a way. They're not disqualifying. They're not the kinds of things I was talking about where you're intentionally searching for the most obscure book you can find. These things have obviously had a fairly sizable, fairly nerdy, but fairly sizable audience. So I'm not disqualifying, but I haven't read it. So right out of the gate, young Abe is at 2 beans. Not a bad start. The next book is Shakespeare, Music and Performance by Bill Barclay. And this is a yes, and I really loved it. I don't think, maybe I didn't love it as much as Abe did. I'm not sure there are many people who love Shakespeare as much as Abe does, which is why he will probably understand when I saw his face on Hannah's video. I blurted out, "What? Will the line stretch out to the crack of doom?" But this one's a yes. I read it and really liked it. The next one is, number 5, is A Tale Told Softly, Shakespeare's Winter's Tale and Hidden Catholic England by Robert Morrison. And I found this at a library of mine and read it. And naturally, I liked it. I think it skates out onto thin ice in a couple of different points, but largely well-grounded. A little bit on the dry side, just a bit. It's not a book that I'd recommend, but I did read it. Then number 6 is Wayward Macbeth, Intersections of Race and Performance. And this is by Scott Newstock and Ayanna Thompson. And it's a no. Once again, it sounds very interesting to me. I would probably read it, but it's never come my way, and I've never gone out of my way to reach it. So that's a no. And then we move on to number 7. And number 7, there's a subcategory in Has Steve Read It, Season 1 or Season 2, and that is the facepalm. There are actually many subcategories, but one of them is the facepalm. And the facepalm is when someone makes a suggestion of a book, and I say, okay, it's a yes, but it's also just an astonishment that you would think that there was any chance that I hadn't read this book. Just no. How could you have possibly thought to put this on this list? And number 7 on Abe's list is not a facepalm. He doesn't actually have any, but it comes awful close. It comes as close as any that are on his list. Number 7 is The Portable Queen Queen Elizabeth I and the Politics of Ceremony by Mary Hill Cole. And this is about the progresses of Queen Elizabeth I. This is about the power wielding, the power displaying, the power moves behind moving her court. It was a huge thing. Her father did it before her. She did it enormously, where you pick up your court and move to some courtier's country seat or whatever for a number of different reasons. Now, you're bringing an entire retinue, but you are not bringing, usually, you're bringing your cooks and your food tasters, but you're not bringing your food. Usually, if the queen decides to honor if you're a nobleman and she decides to honor your country estate with a progress, if she stays for even 5 days, she could ruin you financially. And if she stays for a month, you can see what I mean. You can see the one of the points that the author is making here is that this wasn't just Queen Elizabeth, visiting friends in the country. This had lots of significance, and the book does a really good job of elucidating that, of what that was like. Queen Elizabeth I, much like Henry VIII, was almost constantly on the move. And we forget that when we read Tudor history, but she almost constantly was, and a lot of that was power politics. Just a fascinating subject. And considering that Queen Elizabeth, I know we talk about the Elizabethans, but Elizabeth was a Tudor. Considering that, it seems to me a little bit of a stretch for anyone to look at the description of this book or read it themselves and think, oh, Steve probably hasn't read this. But only a little bit of a stretch. It's not a full facepalm. And then we get to number 8. And number 8 is The Theory of Adaptation by Linda Hutcheon. And that is a no. Again, Abe's description made it sound fascinating. But it's not something that's ever crossed my path, not something I've ever read. And if you're keeping score at home, you realize that history has repeated itself. That for a long time in season 1 of Has Steve Read It, Hannah at Hannah's Books was sovereign supreme of the known universe. And thanks to her own scion, her channel, Abe, is sovereign supreme of the known universe. We now have a winner. At least for now. It might be boring Frida. This is boring you, baby. All this human talk. We now have a winner. We have a couple of people mulling down at only 1 bean, but we have only one person at 4 beans. And that is Hannah et al. So there you go. A little bit of shock and upset as Steve Read It season 2. We now have a front runner. It's been a while since we had a front runner, and now we do. And it's the same front runner we had for a long time in season 1. Now, if I remember correctly, Hannah was eventually deposed. So who is going to depose her fresh-faced son? Door is wide open. 4 beans is not 8 beans. 4 beans is not even 6 beans. So the door is wide open. We'll see if anybody can do better in the course of the week. And I will leave a link down below to yet more musical performance. I'll leave a link to Hannah's video where you can see Abe do his banjo rendition of the theme song to Star Trek The Next Generation. And sooner or later, I'm sure I will be able to leave you a link to his performance of the theme song to the original Star Trek, because as you can see from his total, he owes me that. I'm sure he will get to that very quickly. Perhaps it will feature in one of Hannah's latest videos, one way or another. I'll leave a link to that video, but I'll also Hannah also left another link to more of her son performing, and since he's so talented, I'll leave a link to that too, because it's well worth your time to listen. So there you go. That is Has Steve Read It, the Hannah's Books episode, season 2. A fairly good showing, but there's room for improvement. Will any of you beat this total? We shall see. I'll wrap this up for now, but we'll be back with the next thrilling episode. Thank you, BookTube.